Welcome again to Talking in Stations. I'm Matterall here with Ashtarothi. How's it going, Ash?
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and I promise I won't keep us here for 2 hours today.
Yeah, we got a little touch-up work to do about yesterday. We were talking about patch notes. It was an important patch. Not necessarily a lot of things, but interesting and far-reaching things. Then we'll talk a little bit about the holiday season and what's next with the winter. What would you call that? Festivities?
Oh no, what did they call it?
Event.
It is Winter Nexus event.
Yeah.
The fusion. Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of different stuff happening, and we'll be talking about that.
Yeah. We'll also cover some war news about what happened yesterday, maybe the day before, since we didn't talk about war yesterday. Looks like an industrial complex was destroyed by Pappy. We'll get into that. And also, we have a bunch of other little things that are not little necessarily, but just off the beaten path. Gregorian, what are some of those?
Well, we're going to go over in a little bit more detail some impressive, sneaky dread bomb ops that happened earlier this week that we mentioned, as well as we've one of the TIS guys, Tiberius, has found some more information about the Singularity Syndicate eviction, and there's.
Well, we can just say there's more stuff because I think there's only one more thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get to it. We're going to start with some of the stuff that we wanted to cover yesterday. The biggest news today, I don't know if Ash and Gregorian, you'll agree with me, is CCP has reversed themselves on the medical clones situation. So, Ash, what was that about?
Yeah, so there was, as we talked about yesterday, there was apparently a bug that a lot of people had never expected to be a bug, which is that you can set your home station, and therefore your medical clone, to a station that doesn't have a clone bay. Apparently that was never supposed to be that way, but it has been for as long as I can remember. And so, for instance, Jita 44, as you pointed out, does not have a clone bay, and therefore anyone who has Jita 44 as their home station, they would be grandfathered in, but subsequent people would be unable to ever set their clone to Jita 44 again. And this was very confusing and upsetting to a lot of people within the community. And today, CCP first responded on Twitter, and then I think responded in various other places with a final conclusion that the community team and the other teams got together and huddled about it. And I guess that while this is probably important based on an overall changes that they're making, they understand that this is not an acceptable change for the community as it is, and so it will be reverted tomorrow.
Right, so let's take a look at what they said. We will be reverting the change, which restricted the setting of medical clones when no active clone-based service is present with tomorrow's deployment. There are improvements to be made to make the rules surrounding home stations clearer, and enhancing the sense of home in EVE is something that we are excited to explore in the near future. But we want to find a more elegant solution that does not simultaneously interfere with the gameplay everyone got used to over the years.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I think that what I hear from this is that CCP is basically has been working on a lot of things, but how we relate to our avatars, how we relate to the universe around us is something that they're exploring new options about. So if they are working more into what it means to have a home station, and what these stations represent as far as services to us in a more broader way, it would make sense that in the process of going down that road, they would hit this point. And the way that CCP generally does stuff is they actually just stage these things out as they go, mostly because of their agile development process. So they just got through this point. It was just part of a grander scheme of something. but this part by itself, without the rest of the context of whatever it is that we're going to get when it comes to the revisioning of what it means to have a home in Eve. So don't think that like this is a total victory. This is the kind of change that we should be able to expect when the full thing rolls out potentially, but not yet.
And not in this way. Okay. So another thing we wanted to cover that we didn't cover yesterday very much was patch notes. Yesterday came out with an ice change, or maybe it was a clarification. It was definitely something that we already understood and we had talked about previously on other shows, and that is what's going on with ice. And
yeah,
so,
when they changed the ice anomalies so that they would not spawn in every ice system at downtime, they changed it so that ice anomalies would spawn at certain systems and then each day and then keep respawning there throughout the day when they got depleted. But now, as of yesterday, the patch notes, when it gets depleted in one system, it'll respawn in a different ice system in the same region.
Right. And I like this part. Yeah. More than one ice anomaly can exist at the same time, so they'll just be coming and going. I think constellation-wide? Does anybody know?
Well, it's probably very similar to the way that exploration sites or any of those kinds of sites work, which is that, when they get completed, they basically get thrown up to the same pool, which I think it's distributed per region, I want to say.
Per region, okay.
But, there's so many of these kinds of sites available at any given time. And so finishing it will respawn the site, but it won't respawn it in the same place. You can't just keep farming it in the same location. You have to continually move around and hunt after your food.
That changes things quite a bit because, see this blue ring around a system? That's to indicate that system has ice. And it used to be ice was a permanent ice belt and it never vanished. So you could literally just mine ice 24/7. It would constantly give you ice that you could break down into fuels. So this is going to go away because the designation for ice belts is no longer attached to a system, it sounds like.
Still, the ice belts will only spawn in those systems.
Oh, okay.
Well, when they changed a few weeks ago, only a few of those systems would have ice belts, and when they first changed it for ice belts from permanent, it was when they were cleared, they'd all respawn in 4 hours after being cleared.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few weeks ago, when they changed it a bit further, it was only certain ice systems would have belts on specific days, and then when they were cleared, they'd respawn 4 hours later in the same system. And now they're respawning in different ice systems in the same region.
Good point. Right. Per region and in ice systems. Got
it. Nick is in chat is saying it's by constellation. So one of those, but so I know we've spoken about this before, and one of the reasons why this might sound so familiar is because as we were dealing with the end of invasions, we saw a shift from the various sites inside of invasions being so many sites per system. There will always be 2 T0s and 2 T1s and 1 T2 or whatever sites in a system at a time, to there not being guaranteed sites at all. And one of the things I was speculating was that CCP was working on a new distribution system where it's okay, out of the collection of all of the Triglavian minor victories, there is this many of the T0 sites and whatnot. So running it in one site, this place, would cause it to respawn in one of the other minor victories, and that's the reason why they were so hard to find in some of the more major systems. And then so we would occasionally find them, or even a cluster of them, in more out of the way systems, much like in events, during events in when they're spread throughout all of the cluster and not just a certain space. Mm-hmm. You'll see them begin to collect in wormholes. After 2 or 3 days, you'll get into a wormhole that somebody hasn't been to in a few days, and there'll be 10 of these sites that are so hard to find in some other bands of space, because they just kind of continue to collect and nobody's running them, so they just continue to collect. So they've been experimenting with
like that.
different ways of doing redistribution.
Yeah, I like that. I wish the ice belts would collect and pile up. Kind of like you could do a Lotus fleet on ice every once in a while. But here's constellations colored.
It sounds like It sounds like they are going to be able to pile up now that.
Yeah.
Oh.
One of the things that it said is now it possibly there will be multiple ice anomalies in the same system.
Great.
Right. So basically, you got to think that there's a collection of systems that can be chosen from and that are distributed to, and then there's basically a pool of ice belts that are distributed. And when an ice belt is completed, it is sent back into the pool and then redistributed to the collection. So let's say that there's 3 systems and 3 ice belts, and we start with those 3 systems each having an ice belt, whatever, and then one of those systems ice belt is melted. Well, there's a two-thirds chance that ice belt will spawn in one of the other 2 systems. So now you've got 2 systems with ice belts, one of them with 2 ice belts, and one of them with no ice belts. And then if that other system with 1 ice belt gets mined out, now you have a chance of 2 systems with 0 ice belts, 1 system with 3 ice belts. So if basically they can control how much is available, and they can also potentially dynamically control how many ice belts are available to the distributor per constellation based on like maybe some sort of meta thing, like overall with the constellation. We don't actually know like on that level whether or not like the pool itself might also shift if they want to dynamically change it. And this is where like this is what you mean when you say things like dynamic redistribution, right? This allows them to have levers that they can continually shift behind the scenes in order to adjust the ebb and flow of resources in the galaxy. And then they could even automate that or tie it to behavior or whatever they want to do at that point.
Yeah. So
the one last thing, the issue is that asteroid belts, a lot of people I've heard about like the concern about asteroid belts. Asteroid belts actually have a totally different distribution system in which all of the ore that's mined in any given asteroid belt is sent up to the constellation's distributor and then is just distributed among the sites kind of in the same way. But the way it works is that like once it's been distributed, it basically gets sent to an asteroid belt. And then once it gets to an asteroid belt, it gets sent to a rock, and it gets like that rock gets just increased its value by the amount of ore that's been distributed to it. So that may be a much more archaic system, and they may not be able to adjust that as easily as sites spawn, sites don't spawn.
Well, again, if you're looking for ice, you can still look on the map for the ice belts that are recognized. That's where the ice will be, but you may have no ice at that time. One other thing, Nick says he may be wrong about that. Ice may not be constellation-wide. It may be region-wide. So if there's no ice in this place.
Yeah, I was under the impression it was region-wide.
Okay,
One thing that
I thought it was region-wide too.
I'd be interested in seeing how this affects the various, high-sec ice systems often had one or 2 people who had a lot of multi-boxing and monopolized the ice belt in that system. So I want to see if this shakes those monopolies up. And some of them have a habit of being very aggressive in defending that monopoly, such as by suicide ganking anyone who also tries to mine ice.
Well, Montari is saying that the ice belts haven't been changed. This is just the ice anomalies. I don't actually know enough about ice to walk too far down this path, to be honest.
Okay, ice anomaly. It does say after ice anomaly. Let's look at that language right here. Ice anomaly. I thought those were what ice belts were because ice belts disappeared.
Yeah, they are.
So there are no
ice belts anymore. Okay.
All right, anyway, let's move on. It's okay. We can drop it here.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's basically what this means.
Well, okay, it's fine. The other thing, and I'm gonna pull you back out because we're also going to talk about these other 2 things here, and that is guaranteed Jaspit in low sec. We're talking anomalies here, and in null sec, guaranteed Arcanor and Bistot. So, what's going on with these? Any idea?
This is just the very first steps into the redistribution phase. They said that they were starting that now, And this is like I said, they're introducing these things as anomalies such that they have much more granular control over how they spawn and what controls their rules.
Okay. So
Yeah,
that's. Oh, go ahead. You're going.
So,
And one
or
of the
to put it a different way, what they stripped us down to is the baseline, right? So what we saw for the last few months is like if everything was just chewed away, and then now they're adding on top of that the parts that grow up.
Yeah, one of the things about the null anomalies is that that null systems that have close to 0 true sec with a low absolute value, I think 5 or less, they get an extra anomaly because if you have the ADMs at 0, there isn't enough ore in the belts, the asteroid belts, to mine the ADMs up to get to the point where you can get an ore prospecting array and start spawning anomalies from the iHub.
Okay, well, let's move on. We're falling behind. I want to get to ice. Sorry, not ice. We just did that. To winter Nexus. Same thing.
It actually is more ice. To be you're technically correct.
Yeah. Cold on my mind.
Yeah. So as I've been kind of teasing for the last couple of week, probably, we have a winter event coming up, and it was patched in on Tuesday. And today we found out that it starts tomorrow, and it goes all the way into the 5th. So this is going to be a big one. And honestly, like, you know, we've come a long ways. We've had some good events and we've had some bad events. This one is shaping up to be a pretty interesting event, to be told. Crimson Harvest this year represented a step up in like just the complexity of the events, and the fact that like there was two different types of sites, let alone 2 different difficulties, so a total of 4 different sites with fighting Amar or Blood Raiders. If you fought the Amar, you got one kind of reward. If you fought the Blood Raiders, you got a different kind of reward. If you fought the Amar, then you would get the clones that you would actually have to take to NPC Delve, which I don't know if you've heard, but there's like this war going on, so it's not the safest thing to do.
Yeah.
But the Blood Raiders were buying these clones, so like there's all these super cool things, and like people were like selling them in Jita or like buying them in Jita in bulk, and then trying to figure out how to ship them out to Delve to make a lot of money. It was a lot of exciting stuff, and this looks like it's going to be even more than that. So let's start breaking down the different pieces of it. I need to pull up the actual. There it is. So there are multiple pieces to this. First of all, there's the actual event itself. Then there's challenges, and then there is the PvP arenas. Okay, so we'll talk about those things as 3 different things. The first is the event, which is there will be a new kind of metaliminal storm. For those of you who do not know, in nullsec there are these 4 different kinds of storms that have an eye, and then from that eye radiates out a certain number of jumps. I think it's 2. Basically, it radiates out this weather effect in that whole area, and these weather effects can be quite extreme. There are 2 of each of them in nullsec that wander around, and every day, I believe, they move one system. So much like actual storms, they are monitored and can be tracked like weather patterns, and they're super cool. Well, there's going to be apparently at least 3 more now for during winter. So there's one in highsec, one in lowsec, and one in nullsec, and there will be sites inside of these. There will be hacking, combat, and mining opportunities. There seems to be going to be ice in all 3 of these sites. So basically, each band of difficulty, or each band of space, high sec, low sec, null sec, each of them have their own kind of sites, which each have their own kind of ice, which have each their own kind of lockbox, or like it looks like you mine the ice to get these boxes, and then you can turn them into the outer ring orcas, which appear to be like per band of space too. So they'll probably be somewhere within the metaliminal storm. It's hard to say. But the combat sites will be against Sancha. So be prepared to fight against Sancha. We have some of the, hopefully these are going to be some of the stats. We have, nope, they don't have good stats on these guys yet. or at least not that I can see. Too bad. Okay.
That's the White Storm.
Oh yeah, that might not be it. Hold on.
It's got a very Game of Thronesy kind of name, right? Like the White Walker Sansa Nation.
Oh yeah, they're the frost white. Yeah, they're the White Walkers. Here we go. So they're going to have all kinds of different rats of various sizes for the Sancha. So they're frigates, cruisers, battleships, and they have different E-War based on their naming conventions. So for instance, the numbing is stasis web of fire. The daunting is warp scramming. So they do scram, and you've got cruisers that do. This guy's just heavy damage, etc., etc. So, inside of these sites, there's some pretty cool combat. If for those of you who have not done EVE PvE, especially the events or Abyssal or not events this last year or invasions in the last year, the rats in these sites don't behave like the old rats. They behave more like players. So you can E-War them, you can jam them, you can newt them. They will attack you with E-War. They will use logistics. They'll behave mostly like the ships that you would expect them to behave. They do warp around if you get too far away from them sometimes. So you can't really kite them out very well. But they are a much more different rat. They're not your daddy's rat. And of course, when you go to these more dangerous areas of space, especially since they scram, you quickly end up in these kind of PvPvE environments where you have to be ready to scrap it up with players as well as NPCs pretty quickly to get the coolest stuff. But as I said, there's also going to be hacking opportunities. I don't really know any details about that. And there is going to be these lock boxes that you get from the ice itself, these salvage packages. It says it's obtained by trading faded volatile ice. Oh, I guess you just trade the ice. So you mine the ice, trade it into the Orca. Orca gives you these boxes. That's simple enough.
Isn't that how Resource Wars worked?
It is. Well, it is. You mined it and you put it in the Orca. You didn't get an item afterwards, but you would get like ISK or whatever. But yeah, effectively, it is kind of like Resource Wars, sure. Which they said that they're working on reworking. So that's a good point. Some of the rewards that you can get will be these accelerators, which everybody always loves. There will be, I don't know if I pulled it up, but there is the new implants, which are the Rapture implants, which are capacitor bonus. Given the fact that these are Sancha related, gosh darn it. Oh well. The Sancha, the implants, I believe, are associated with Sancha, so I think that they come from the combat sites potentially, along with overseer effects. Halloween was actually worth a lot of ISK, guys, and the reason why
the
was
Crimson
because
Harvest during Halloween.
Yes, the Crimson Harvest this year. And actually the last few events, one of the things that they've started doing is adding in overseer effects far more to make sure that because in the past events were good, but like if the loot or the skin or whatever that was dropping that for that event wasn't cool enough to people, it was sometimes hard to actually like the value of the events were fluctuating wildly, obviously. But now that they pretty consistently put overseer effects, which are purchased by NPC buy orders, that basically is just a guarantee payout for completing the sites. Mm-hmm. Now, the other cool thing is that there's going to be a login event in association with this, which comes with skins, skill points, but also will give you some of the filaments that you can also get by running the sites and everything like that. And these filaments will lead you into the different these storms. So in the past, you would have to go
and find it.
Hold on a second. Yeah, you'd have to go hunt down these sites, and they're always tough. Like such a pain in the butt to go find them. But now you can just go beep and just go into the heart of the storm.
That's brilliant.
And
I've done that a while
ago.
It's
going to be pretty cool.
Because one of the tough things about these things, at least the last 3 events, even I have been like, great, this sounds cool. I'm going to do it. What do I do? And nobody could tell me how to get in there. They'd be like, yeah, just look at your agency and you'll You have to go out there and then you have to probe it down. And I was like, not doing it. So I wasn't able to get involved with anything. But if you're going to give me something like a key to get me right into the area where this event's happening, I'm going to participate in that.
And I love it that they actually reused the theming from last year when they first came out with the Needlejack Filaments, which was during last year's Yule event. They named them after the reindeer, which is why we call them reindeer filaments. So there's, this is the Dancer High-Sec Ice Storm filament, DNCR05H filament. So there's a filament that will lead you to a high-sec storm, a low-sec storm, or a null-sec storm, so you get to choose what kind of content you want to go into. It also means that there's probably going to be more people at these different ones. I don't know how many of these storms will exist. I imagine there's going to be probably a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. This will be the first storm in high-sec, isn't it?
It'll be the first Metal Luminous storm that has a source outside of nullsec at all. Like, it's the first for lowsec as well.
You have the eye of the storm, and then you have the systems that are the waves past it. So some of those could dip into high sec and low sec.
Correct.
But this is the first time the eye of the storm can be in low sec or high sec.
Right. Exactly. And the other thing that's interesting about this is that this is the very first time that you have a filament that will guarantee you to be brought back to high sec, right? Like recently with the emergence of Poshfin, we kind of have this neat new roundabout way to, depending how lucky and whatever you are, you can use Poshfin to basically take stuff from anywhere to JITA or somewhere else in high sec with relative guaranteed results. But this basically says, boop, I'm now in high sec. So I wonder if that's going to have some pretty secondary effects. I intend myself to potentially farm these in high sec and then ship them out to Delve and see if anybody wants to purchase them.
Are these just for the event, or are they going to last past the event?
They will only last for the event. I can say that. I don't know if it says it in here, but like I say that with pretty assurity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says for a limited time.
Okay.
I would be surprised if that wasn't the case.
Well, and actually this got asked earlier, and I just realized, well, the storms go away. So
yeah.
It'll be hard to use them.
I got it. So you can only use them in the storm.
No, they bring you to a storm.
But what gets you back to high sec? Is that something that you can only
The
use
storm's in high sec. It guarantees to take you to the high sec storms.
See. If you're in, so if you have the filament and you're not in high sec, this will definitely bring you to high sec using it. Oh, interesting. Okay. Because I was thinking anything that can zap you right back to high sec is going to be used by ESS thieves, right?
Yep. ESS thieves are going to ride reindeers home.
Yeah.
No Poshfin required.
Santa Claus, instead of dropping off gifts, he's going to take your presents.
In addition to that, I actually heard of another change. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean that was funny. But that actually reminded me of another change that I think we might have forgotten to talk about. Which, and this, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a change that was put in such that being potted now kills the combat capsuleer timer.
Yep.
Which means that if you die and are potted in an ESS raid, you no longer have to wait 15 minutes to yeet again. You just immediately get to go out because your flag is cleared by being potted. That's interesting. So they get to get out faster and they get to get back faster. The next 2-3 weeks are going to be reverse Santa Claus, I think. So in addition to that, with all that excitement, like I said, we have login rewards, which has some cool stuff. We have Chilling Spree, so you're going to get snowballs from your login rewards that you can use in festival launchers and shoot them at players in order to get skill points, just like Killing Spree usually does. But also, they're going to put in a bunch of new NPCs. So like during the previous few events, if you go to a specific place and you shoot a ship with like one of the Titans with a firework, you would get skill points or whatever. Well, now there's going to be, you go to these specific NPCs and you hit them with a snowball and then you get a reward. And it's based on the fact that this is the 13 days of before Christmas or whatever. There's the 13 Yule Lads, which is a tradition within Icelandic culture, which of course CCP is Icelandic and they love to use their culture, to showcase their culture, especially around Yule time. So what they've done is they've introduced I can't remember what they call them. Not the pod children. What do they call them? Yule clones. The Yule clones are coming to town, or not really coming to town, but we now get posters. So based on each of the days, if you complete the challenge, you'll get the poster associated with that day. So I think if you don't want to miss a day if you want to get the whole set. Hold on a second. Let me pull it up.
It's 13 days of Christmas login event. Because the overall event, by the way, just to make it clear, this is for the rest of the year until January 5th. That's when all this stuff is happening. But there is a 13 days of logging in where you will get rewards. Don't miss those.
My bad. So yes, I'm talking about from the 12th to the 24th. I'm sorry. So this Chilling Spree starts on the 12th and goes to the 24th. So it's the 13 days prior to Christmas. So for the 13 days prior to Christmas, you'll be able to get these extra challenges to go out and hit these snowballs on NPCs, and you'll be able to get these cool posters that I'm showing here, which is reversed because
turn on your
I don't think about what I do.
Turn on your
well, no, I can do that.
Yeah, turn on your share. No, I just zoom in on you. Go ahead. That's fine.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so in the real world, one of the Yule lads is known as Door Slammer. So in Eve, it's called Airlock Slammer. So it's just a cute little thing. They've brought. You can get these. They usually introduce lore trinkets and other stuff during Yule. It's usually part of just a login event or something like that. But in this case, we get to be introduced to some NPCs. We'll find out perhaps later on why CCP feels interested to draw attention to these NPCs during this event. But for this, we get to collect 13 posters. It'll be interesting to see how many people get the whole set. But yeah, so there's the Chilling Spree, there's the Filaments, there's the ice storms and the opportunities there. There's the Yule skin, which is the Yule Star skin, has these cool bars on them. Hold on. Radios has these. We're not going to be able to see it very well right now because it's not turned on. But during Yule, there is these 2 bars along the top that glow, and there's these, I think, 10 to 13 minor bars that light up one at a time, counting all the way up to Christmas. And then this cool star appears on Christmas and stays on through, I think, New Year. They are available only during Christmas seasons. I call it the ugly Christmas sweater. And they are not only back, but there is a bunch of new ones too. The Brutix, Buzzard, Deimos, Hell, Menakawa, Providence, Retribution, and Typhoon hulls are all coming back.
So they're bringing the skin back? I like the skin. Awesome.
Absolutely.
That's Hateless.
And
He's
then
joining us.
How's it going?
Also,
man?
hi, Astrothy. Good seeing you again. And Matterall, and looks like Gorgon is here as well. Hello.
Hey.
And then the final piece is that we will be getting the 2 Abyssal Proving Grounds that I talked about yesterday. The first is going to be from the 18th to the 22nd, which is going to be a 2v2v2v2, so a 4-way 2-man destroyer fight. And the other one will be a 3v3 frigate, T1 frigate fight from the 1st to the 5th of January. And in both of these Abyssal Proving Grounds, there will be the additional effect of heat damage is reduced by half thanks to the winter event. So, as I said, there's a lot going on. I still don't even know if that is everything that we need to understand. There might be more secrets involved, but it looks like there's a lot of cool activities for anybody who wants to get involved.
Cool. So we have a question from the audience there that I think is a definite yes, but he says, hi there, and question, this is going to be like Crimson event, and will it be with rewards as good as Crimson?
We don't know the rewards yet, unless Astrothy knows more than me, but I don't even know what these sites look like yet. So,
well, like I said, so they've been using the Overseers effects to make sure that like these sites are pretty darn rewarding. So I would expect them to be at least as rewarding or similar in value as Crimson Harvest. But in addition, these Rapture implants that will be dropping from the Sancha I think that they're going to be a game changer, or not a game changer, but I think that they're going to be interesting. Sometimes the new implants are less exciting than others. Hydras spring to mind that are very niche, but there are lots of cases in which people would want faster or better capacitor. So
I can think of 5 off the top of my head, and the flexibility of it is absolutely amazing. It can fit into a lot of different fits and ships, and I think that is really cool.
Yeah. So combine. There's one other thing that I wanted to note, which is that when you do these ULAD events, one of the things that they threw out there in previous events years ago, there would be like you would accumulate points to get to like meta rewards, right? Like the big reward you had to get do the stuff all every day or whatever, or like when you acquire a certain amount of points. Either way. That appears to be somewhat back as well. So they said that as you do the challenges, you'll also accumulate bigger, cumulative points. They also said that there's going to be faction equipment too. So, Sancha faction equipment could also potentially drop in these sites. So I predict it's going to be very lucrative for those people who are willing to do them and master them and not get, screwed over by somebody else who has mastered them better.
All right. Hey, have you been looking at this event that's coming up?
Well, it just got announced today, and I haven't really done much. I haven't really been able to look more than just the patch notes. I'm honestly excited for the new events. The last Crimson Harvest event was a lot of fun to get a gang of like 5 to 10 people together and go out into low sec with cheap cruisers. It was a blast. And I'm wondering what this event's going to look like compared to the other events. They said that in Low and Null, they're going to be more difficult this time, whereas last time in Low and Null, they were about the same. I may have had a weird experience, but that being said, that leads to a lot of excitement, and it does create a cool flashpoint for content to happen, and I think that can be a lot of fun. I'm more interested in the sites themselves, because that's kind of like what I like doing, is new sites and whatnot, but I think it's cool. And incentive to log in and whatnot is fantastic, and a cool flash for cash right now with the changes in ratting will provide incentive for more people playing. I think that's good.
Yeah, excellent.
One thing to note, they might patch this tomorrow, but I mentioned earlier that they are Sancha, prepare for Sancha. But upon going through these damage profiles, I'm going to have to check the stats like on like the actual numbers behind the scenes, but according to the show info, they're doing pretty omni damage and have a pretty omni tank.
So do you think that they're going to be more like the incursion routes, where they are just flat out omni?
I'm not sure. Well, I mean, they clearly have there's a slight explosive hole, so I would shoot explosive if you can with a kinetic secondary. And they do more EM and thermal than others, but they definitely also have kinetic and explosive damage. It's 38, 25, 19, 19 for the cruiser, and it's 28, 28, 22, 22 for the battleship. And that's the thing that's going to punch somebody in the face. So
yeah,
be careful.
I'm excited to try it. It's definitely what I'm going to be doing tomorrow, is playing with these sites.
All right. I was just putting you guys side by side so I could compare beard sizes. And
oh gosh,
yeah,
I concede.
I think Hateless won that round.
Nope,
nice.
I concede.
You look like Jesus to me, Ashtarothi, which is kind of weird because you're so into the cult and stuff. Oh, all right, kind of works out. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. We have a few more things. That is the winter event. Look for it. We'll talk more about it as it starts. We'll remind you of the 13 days once that starts. And it's like an advent.
I will have a lot more information on the event site tomorrow after I've had a chance to play with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Question: when do those sites start to spawn?
Tomorrow.
Downtime tomorrow.
Okay.
Like after downtime tonight.
So in about, what is that, 10 hours? 9?
That sounds close.
Yeah. Uh-oh. You know what else started right now? Cyberpunk 7700.
Oh,
2077.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is.
I have been attempting to download that day one patch for like the last 3 hours. I don't want to talk about it.
I think the war is over because everybody's going to play that for a while. No, I'm just kidding. What We wanted to bring that up though, right? Like Cyberpunk, it's a big game. What can you tell us about it, Ash? Who created it?
So it's made by CD Projekt Red, which is they're famously known for Witcher 3.
Witcher.
So
Good
they have a history of taking a well-constructed universe and translating it into an incredibly well fleshed out video game set in that universe. And so now we have in the 80s, during like the heyday of the tabletop RPG, one of the RPGs was Cyberpunk. And it kind of represented this dystopian future that takes place in this one city called Night City, which is, of course, the most bestest place to be. And so now that same company has been working for 9 years. It's been delayed more times than Duke Nukem 3, whatever the Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah.
But finally, as of about an hour ago, it released. So
well, there it is.
I'm being nice by being here right now. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
No. I have committed that if I'm, once I start playing it, I may try a little bit just to check out to make sure everything's working before I do it. But my goal is to stream all of my gameplay because I actually know very little about the game. It's going to be a totally blind playthrough. It was gifted to me, so I want to try to do that.
Yeah, apparently INN is streaming it now, and there's only 18,000 players in EVE. So yeah, it has some thematic similarities to EVE Online in that it's an open world with a lot of style and a lot of ability to come into collisions with other people and to fight them and all this other stuff. So yeah,
I mean, it could quite possibly be the most anticipated video game release of potentially all time, with a successful release. It depends on how well this goes. But somebody pointed, on Reddit, somebody commented that he wish listed it in the 4th grade, and he just got accepted to college. Yeah. Put that in perspective for you.
Wow. And it's just a few minutes old. So, wow, the anticipation. Okay. So it's going to be interesting, but I wonder how many players this is going to suck out of the war
I know
effort.
that a few people in my corporation are playing it right now.
The thing is that it's a single player game. So I'd like to think that people could pause it long enough, or tie-dye isn't demanding. Get a second laptop. It'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
A lot of people play other games while they're sitting in tie-dye.
One thing that I really want to mention, and that drives home with EVE Online really true, is people may go and play other games when they're in EVE. A game will come out, people will go play it. They won't log into EVE for a couple of weeks, but they always come back. You never quit EVE Online. You always come back to it sooner or later.
Even if you do quit, there's no other game that's really quite the same.
And either way, if you don't want to chance it, just get yourself a dancer and yeet your way to high sec. Easy peasy. Come back and see what's left.
Oh, that kind of dancer. Oh, okay. I was thinking, don't they have dancing ladies in
yeah, there's items called exotic dancers in the game, and you should always put one in your cargo.
Yeah.
If you're a male, you should definitely be doing a male exotic dancer in your cargo.
I like how he's feeling around the idea of the pleasure hubs when he used the sound effect from the pleasure hub at the beginning of TIS for years. So
yeah, exactly. Nobody else got that. It was the Galente Spa. That's what that voice is at the end of the introduction for the weekend report. All right.
I destroy pleasure hubs every day.
That's terrible if you think about it.
Wow.
Okay.
We're monsters.
I gotta save that damsel. I mean, come on.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to some more news and get out quick. I want to say yesterday the Pappy killed entire complex in FM Tech JK5. That's in Delve. I'll show you that in just a second. It's right here. Just about 2 jumps from T5Z, and it looks like they wiped out some what was it? 3 Satios, 2 Asbels, 1 Tartara. So those are mining drills and engineering, ship engineering or shipyards, basically. So that's about 250 billion ISK worth of damage. And then also 2 faction Fortizars, Prometheus and a Moreau, were downed yesterday as well, and that's about 120 billion. So Pappy really wrecking stuff in Delve right now.
And you ain't getting those faction Fortizars back. You don't just go and like build a new one. You don't throw it in the hopper. That thing's gone forever.
Yeah, the price for faction Fortizars, of course, it depends on which one, but they've gone up about 10 billion. Now they're sitting pretty easily at 40 billion. They used to sit at 20.
Well, they go back. They go up every single time this happens.
Yeah.
So there's no introduction of this asset in the game. There is a finite number that exists, and every time one is destroyed, that finite number goes down. Kind of like the gold magnet. I think there's only one in that's known to be in existence right
Yeah. You know what? I heard a silver magnet was actually, I believe a silver magnet was put at risk, but it survived. I think somebody had.
Yeah,
it
that was
Someone
that
decided
was
to
what-
fly it in a Jeep.
that was someone in my corporation, as mentioned when another one of my corp mates was talking about his suicide ganking here.
Yeah. What happened? That was kind of exotic.
He was moving it in a character that apparently didn't have standings to the Alliance suicide ganking sig and was a little bit careless, so they almost got it.
Oh, that's a priceless ship. One of very few. Almost got taken out by the oddest of events.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was really hoping by the end of that you ended with the Triglavians, that was the people that
Yeah.
they didn't have his standings with the Trig and got killed.
That's very easy.
So
to happen.
in my early days of streaming in PvP, I actually came across the gold magnet doing baiting for PvP, and we almost caught it. We got 1 or 2 webs on it, and then his buddy came in and he barely managed to skip away. But those things are awesome, and it's crazy to come across that. Like we stood no chance in hell. He had a daredevil, he had a bunch of help around him.
Yeah.
But I mean, we almost baited him and almost got him. It was so close. It would have been amazing had we done
That's
that. But
literally like camping and seeing Sasquatch walk by. It's so rare. It almost doesn't happen. But okay. So let's talk about some of the other stuff that's happened in nullsec as far as war. Gregorian, you tell us about dread bombs?
Earlier this week, there were 2 rather impressive dread bombs that happened. One of them was tactical supremacy and some of their friends hitting a Siberian squad's move up to get some ships back home to defend against the initiative's deployment to Curse, and the other was Horde Vanguard dread bombing a freighter that had picked up an unanchored Goon Swarm Keepstar. So
go ahead. I think we did talk about this yesterday. I'm not sure, but
We talked about the freighter.
yeah.
yeah, the freighter. All right, so just go ahead and finish. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I had heard back from some of the people who had been planning these operations. So the exact words of an initiative fleet commander with regard to the Siberian squad's dread bomb were, they were simply caught gating, which makes sense since they took the regional gate between Quarius and Ketch, which I'm not sure why they did that with when they have a Keepstar chain back to Legacy home space. It might save some time, but this seems like the kind of thing where the extra time spent moving is worth the extra safety. And I also asked, what I heard from Tactical Supremacy is that they had intel of it that Siberian squads would be moving. So most of the move ops didn't have opportunities to drop on it, but this one even though most of the grid was covered in cyanojammers, there was one little spot that this person in a cloaked blops was able to move that where you could that wasn't covered by cyanojammers. So just a few minutes before downtime, they dropped 71 total dreadnoughts from Tactical Supremacy, some of their usual allies like Simple Farmers and Straya Post, as well as some other alliances that are against Legacy, like the Initiative, which is recently deployed out to near where they operate, and the Stain Russians, since this dread bomb was staged out of Stain.
Mm-hmm. All right. I've lost track of where we are here.
And then...
Okay, go ahead.
And I also reached out to Ginto Lafiel, who was one of the people involved in planning this Horde Vanguard operation to prevent the extraction of this Keepstar. He's a guy in Horde who does a lot of useful behind-the-scenes stuff. He doesn't usually lead fleets or things like that, but he's usually doing a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. So it looked like they were monitoring it and had some stuff ready in position.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he showed me was a victory message that said, "I dare goons to try and unanchor another Keepstar in Delve. KQK sends its regards."
Whoa, it's a threat. All right. Well, we have seen them have pretty bad luck in the last week with Keepstars.
It's not just a threat; it's a reference, because sends his regards.
KQK was KQK was the system in Pureblind where Goonswarm used a freighter flown by a Horde character in order to try to extract their Keepstar.
I remember that. Yeah, they tried over and over again. So KQK sends its regards is kind of like revenge from Horde. Got it.
Well, more specifically, though, when it comes to the Mittani, his regards is the Mittani shtick. When he did it, like when he told the story about the backstabbing of Bob, which is what he kind of is his claim to fame, like the whole thing of his regards was a piece of that. Like the Mittani sends his regards. It's, if you look at the True Story of Eve book, that's the comic book that they made about that story, like the Mittani sends his regards is written on a piece of paper at the bottom of the empty hangar at the last scene. And even when the Mittani did their deal with other video games, I think it was DayZ, the special weapon that they introduced for the Mittani and his crew was his regards. And so it's not just...
It was a machete called his regards.
Yeah, it wasn't. This isn't just like somebody wants to reference Game of Thrones. This is somebody throwing the Mittani's words back at him.
Right. All right.
Yeah, it's interesting that there have been 4 major high-profile failed Keepstar extractions so far this year. 2 of them had been executed by Horde Vanguard in particular. The KQK one and this one, both happened similarly, that Horde Vanguard's dreadnoughts were ready immediately to prevent the Keepstar extractions. Like usually people think of Pandemic Horde as the more new player, relaxed alliance, but it does have some groups that do some of the more advanced gameplay like that, and Horde Vanguard is really good at what they do.
Okay. So just one more piece of news and we got to take off. We're running a bit behind here. And this is Executive Outcomes calls it quits. They're disbanded. These guys have been around for a while. As you can see, they were formed in 2006. So they were a 14-year-old alliance. And they were actually notable before they joined. I think they were fighting Goonswarm back in the CFC days, but they actually joined the CFC. And they were one of the groups, although they were small, that stuck with the Imperium and moved down to Delve. There was really only 3 allies or so that went with them: Bastion, TNT, and Executive Outcomes. It's not the one that comes to mind for people, but they were really loyal to their allies at that point. So sad to see them fold, but they've been around. They actually left the Imperium after a while, after they got settled in Delve and everything was calmed down. Then they kind of just took off. But so it's interesting. One last thing, there is an article by Tiberius from TIS. He wrote it here in Reddit. I'll go ahead and paste it here. And he talks about the eviction of Cindy. Not Snide, but Cindy, although they kind of sound like Snide in some of their dealings. So kind of works out. But that's all that we have time for. We've been at it for an hour. I'm sure people want to go and watch more EVE Online and maybe some punk. What is it?
Cyberpunk 2077.
Cyberpunk. I love The Witcher, so I'm going to look at this too. But
it's a single player game. I'm definitely interested.
My favorite is somebody got on Twitter. Somebody took their Eve avatar and decked them out in, I think it was Innerbuff's clothes. So it's like the bright yellows and white. So they made their Eve character look like a Cyberpunk 2077 character. So that way they could do both at the same time.
So okay, I'm sorry. This is I thought it was open world multiplayer. So it's not an MMO.
No,
it's a single player game. Okay, with a storyline. And
it's like Grand Theft Auto, kind of.
Grand Theft Auto in the future.
It's like, right, it's Grand Theft Auto, but more RPG than like run and gun.
Got it. Sounds good. Maybe I will try it. All right, guys.
Like
thanks
Skyrim.
very much. Hey, Liz, thanks for jumping in. By the way, before I run out, do you have anything that you wanted to talk about or refer to? Anything particular?
Oh.
Nothing pops out to me
immediately
right
now. Ash, you got anything else?
I mean, we did the entire session on the event, which is the only thing I've tried to talk about for like the last week. So no,
we're done.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Good. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us. We will be back tomorrow, and then Friday you'll be seeing a lot more of Ash Jarathi as we go on, and Hateless too. When he can get on, we grab him. So it's great to have these guys here, and of course our researcher Gregorian. Thanks for bringing up some news, and we will again see you guys tomorrow on Talking End Stations. Take care.